here, and it begins with our first assignment, right? We made those sweet lions. Remember those? Roar! And you became part of the pack, right? You're part of an amazing high school, Woodbury High School. Lots of amazing things happening here, and just remember, you'll always be a lion. So, Royal Nation, all right. Congratulations. Maybe you can find your picture on there, screenshot it, do what you need to do. But there you have it, right? So we wrote our first presentation. If you remember, it was "What's in your name." You had to come up. You had to talk about your name, what it meant to you, where it came from, and it was our first presentation. There were many of you that were like, "Mr. Carlson, I just can't present. I'm so nervous." And I told you to be fine, and you were fine. Think about where you were when you presented that first time, as opposed to where you are today in your presentation skills. And for all of you, I can tell you all with certainty that you are better at it today than you were in September. So we did that. We read one of my favorite books, The Beatles and Angels by Maui Oskendom, a book about persevering through hardship. And there's some pretty important quotes that came through there. Obviously, all the quotes I'm going to talk about are quotes that are on my board, that right above the whiteboard. They've been up there all year, and they'll continue to be there. So the first one: work hard and respect others. A quote given to him by his father, something I always remember, is to work hard. To do what you need to do, to respect others, to put people, um, in a respectful way. If you have nothing nice to say, it's always easier just to be quiet. Sometimes one of the hardest things to do is to bite our tongue, but there's definitely times for that to happen, and there's definitely times where you got to speak up. But to try and be respectful in the ways that you go around your stuff is really important. The next one I'll talk more about at the end of this presentation. But remembering where you came from means holding on to the vision that you are part of a human community that you can carry with you every day. There's so important thing is, is to remind ourselves that where we came from is part of a community, and that we carry that community with us. And when you think about that, it's a pretty amazing thing about that, right? Continuing on, we hear the quote, "Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me." And Maui says that's false. Sticks and stones can indeed break bones, but words can often do worse. They can stifle, they can destroy, and they can mutilate all the beautiful, hopeful things inside of us. It's so important, to just try and be respectful, and not say those mean things to other people, because it really isn't necessary. The next quote, it'll be the small things all of us can do that will have the biggest impact. And that's so true. Doing little acts of kindness have the biggest impact on other people. And it's amazing to see that in our society, when little acts of kindness can help make the biggest impact. After that, today's small act of kindness can become tomorrow's whirlwind of human progress. To think about how our little actions, when they take flight, you see other people do it, and it's pretty awesome. And the last one, definitely about being selfless. True power comes from what we can give, not just on what we can take. And the reality that it's great to get things, right? It's great to take things, but really, what defines us, really what gives us the power, is focusing on what we can give to others. We wrote our first paper. Our narrative is about experiencing your life. We made that flip book, went through the process. You guys did a great job. I wrote about honesty put to the test, and how, I failed at that in fourth grade. So definitely a mistake I still remember many years later. After that, we read The Most Dangerous Game, read about Rainsford and Zaroff, and obviously, the choice to stand up for yourself or to run away. And obviously, standing up for yourself in certain situations is really important, especially in this one where there's no other option. So, read about the cask of Amontillado, of Fortunato, and Montresor. You know, I don't know what to take out of it. Maybe people don't ever forget the bad things you do, but I think it's good to forgive. And obviously, Montresor has not done that yet. We have the necklace. Guy de Maupassant wrote this. Obviously, talks about greed and how the greed leads to, just leads to more issues, And so, just to be okay with what you have, to be proud of what you have, and to work on what you have, And when you yearn for things that you can't have, when you become greedy, it usually just causes bigger issues, as we can see in the story. One of my favorite stories, The Gift of the Magi, about being selfless. Obviously, she cut her hair to get her husband his pocket watch chain. He sold his pocket watch chain, so her pocket watch, so he could buy his wife a comb for her hair. And it just talks about those selfless acts, and the greatest gift isn't about what we have, is what we give to others, and it's really about what true love is. And you can tell these two people love each other because they're sacrificing for others. One of my favorite quotes, it's on my little get to know Mr. Carlson poster there when you walk in the room. But love lives through sacrifice and is nourished by giving. Without sacrifice, there is no love. And it's so important to remind us, like when we give of ourselves to others, it's really, really the greatest thing, and it's the greatest gift for ourselves. After that, we did our next presentation on independent reading. The presentation without words on it. I thought you guys did a nice job on that. We did our parts of speech, right? We took our first test on, I'm trying to think here, nouns, verbs, and pronouns. There we go. After that, we started trimester 2. Trimester 2, we started with a hero project. You guys talked about someone you thought did something great, and then what kind of hero they were. After that, we did our awesome made up gods and goddesses. I was really impressed with yours. I thought that they're pretty comical. Watching students stop over the last the 2 months that they were up and just laugh at what you wrote, and they read about the strengths and weaknesses is pretty awesome. And I was really proud of your effort on those. After that, you either did a storyboard on one of the gods, or you made a video with your group. Some pretty awesome videos, made me laugh. I really appreciate that. It was pretty awesome to see. After we read the Odyssey, there's so many things to take out of the Odyssey, but one of the things that I really think is important is just to see how Odysseus refines himself as he continues on. I think he realizes his mistakes along the way, and instead of ignoring him, he changes who he is. He changes the way the leader he is to become a better leader. And I just think about, like as for our life, when we realize that we have a shortcoming, and we try and work on that to make ourselves a better version of ourselves, and for Odysseus to make a better version of a leader. And, one of the quotes that we have on the board here is, "We beached there, and I told the crew to stand by and keep watch over the ship. As for myself, I took my 12 best fighters, and I went ahead." After that, after we finished the Odyssey, I made you do a nice little brochure. Pretty awesome brochures here. I was proud of your effort, and they were pretty funny to watch or to read, and some of your places are quite scary. After that, we read Romeo and Juliet. Lots of things to take out of here, but what I really take out of here is the love and beauty that they have for each other. My bounty is as boundless as the sea. My love is deep. The more that I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite. It goes back to that quote on love. Love, when you love someone, you actually receive more in return, and so important there. And then the other one, what's in a name that which we call a rose, by any word would smell just as sweet. And obviously to think about, why aren't you hanging out with someone? Why aren't you friends with someone? Is it because they're not part of your group? I think, I played football in high school, obviously in college, but I would always hang out with the football players. And, there's very nice football players. But I remember my senior year of high school, I was in an econ class, and I met a man by the name of Brian. And, we just talked. He was actually a really good swimmer. He was all state, and it was the first time I ever had a class though. And we talked here and there, and I really realized that he was a really great man, and became friends with him, and he's still my friend today. Just a man who I think very highly of, and maybe if I was a freshman, I wouldn't have hung out with him because, he wasn't in the same sports as I was. But as time goes on, you realize that he was a sweet man. He's a kind person, and it doesn't really matter what kind of sports he plays in. Doesn't matter his last name. Doesn't matter the clothing that he wears. What matters is the heart that he has, and that's why he's still my friend 20 years later. After that, we did our second presentation on independent reading. Remember that? You did your the book to movie, and you guys did a great job. Of course, can't forget about grammar. We did conjunctions. We did adjectives and adverbs, and we finished that up. And then we started distance learning. That's right, distance learning. Wrote our persuasive outline, our persuasive writing, our persuasive essay, Lots of you wrote about roar time, how it should be extended to twice a week. When you guys talk about how you want a longer lunch, some of you want open lunch. There's many things you talked about, but I liked them all. I thought you did a great job on that. It was really hard to do distance learning, but to be proud of your effort there, because obviously you're in a great spot. And then, of course, we finished up grammar. We did our interjections and prepositions. We didn't take a grammar file this year based off of distance learning, but to see your progress and to watch you at the end was pretty impressive. And of course, we just finished To Kill a Mockingbird, and obviously there's so many things to take out of To Kill a Mockingbird, but two that I really appreciate. The first one is this one: you never really understand a person until you consider it from their point of view, until you climb into his skin and you walk around it. We think about what's happening in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Maybe it brings us sadness, maybe it brings us anger, maybe it just brings us, um, you know, discomfort, whatever it is. And I think it's important to process, like what, consider from the other perspective. And a lot of times when we do that, it doesn't mean that we necessarily agree with it, but at least we can understand. And I think about situations with my family members, situations with perhaps a colleague or something. And a lot of times when I can take a step back and reflect on why they're acting the way they are, it definitely helps me out. And then, of course, one of my favorite quotes of all time, about being a mockingbird, right? Mockingbirds don't do one thing but make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat out people's gardens. They don't nest in corn cribs. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. And that's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. Think about all those people in the world that just seek to do goodness. We can't put those people down, right? There's so many mockingbirds among us. There's very few blue jays. And mockingbirds are people that we need to treat with respect. And to think of all of our quotes, to treat them with the dignity that they deserve. And I just encourage you to continue to be a mockingbird, to sing your heart out for others. All right? To help people when you need, because that's what's most important. So there's tons of things we've talked about. Obviously, you're probably like, Mr. Carlson, why are you doing this? Well, there's so many standards we've met. 34 state standards of English and I have been taken care of, so you can check that off the list. But I hope there's a lot more to this class, and I know there's a lot more to this class than just the state standards. Obviously, we have our guidelines to be successful. About respecting yourself, your classmates, your classroom, and your elders. To see you do that is awesome. It's a work in progress. Sometimes we have to refine ourselves to make us a better version of ourselves. But to see that is quite awesome, and to see you progress and to see where you are is something that I want you to know I'm really proud of. And of course, I'm going to read you one last little excerpt from A Beatles and Angels. So at the end, Maui gives a commencement speech to, I'll make this a little bigger right now, to his class at Harvard. And I'm going to read it to you. This is in 1999. When I was a child, my mother told me I should always sleep with the covers over my head. At that time, my family was living in a Sudanese refugee camp in Africa, and we owned nothing that we did not carry with us. On many a night, we slept out in the open, and my mom warned us that if we let the covers down, snakes would slip in and slither into our mouths. We had no problem following her advice. Ha ha. Everyone would laugh. There'd probably be 20,000 people there, so you're laughing. Ha ha. Years later, in the comfort of the United States, my mother gave me another piece of advice. This one was a little less obvious. She said, always remember where you have come from. She told me this just before I left for Harvard. I was puzzled. The first piece of advice had been easy. Who wants a mouthful of snake? Ha ha ha. But the second part was a little more complicated. Why is it so important to remember where I came from? So when I got to Harvard and saw new worlds open before me, I quickly forgot about trying to understand my mom. Before I knew it, I signed up for the Taekwondo Club, the Harvard African Students Association, a Phyllis Brookhouse program, the freshman crew team, where I told a $15,000 boat against the dock, and a freshman Bible study. I figured I needed all the prayer that I could get. And of course, I was taking 4 classes and trying to meet as many of my 1,600 classmates that wanted to meet me. As I focused my energies on myself, and my immediate surroundings, remembering where I'd come from seemed far less important than knowing where I was supposed to be every half hour. But during my sophomore year, something happened to remind me of my mom's advice. I was working as a delivery man for the Harvard Student Agency. One day, as I was waiting for my packages in the office, an elderly black woman tottered in and wearily leaned on her cane. She hoped to find someone who would type a short letter for her. Such a simple, easy thing to do. But HSA had no typing service, and the receptionist had to tell her that she had come to the wrong place. As the old woman turned to leave, frustrated and confused, one of my coworkers called her over, gently sat her down, and typed the letter. It was such a simple act, yet never has a Harvard student seemed so great to me as in that moment of reaching out. I began to reflect on what my mother might have meant. In the Sudan, we had carried with us all that we had owned, but that included our devotion to one another. In that sense, we carried a home, a community, a sense of mutual responsibility wherever we went. On that day in the Harvard Student Agency, my coworker carried a community with her as well, the simple community of human connection and duty. So, what have I learned from my 4 years at Harvard? Well, many facts and formulas, many new ways of thinking, a fresh understanding of the world. But what's most important to me is that after 4 years at Harvard, I'm finally beginning to understand my mom's advice. Remembering where you came from means holding on to the vision that you are part of a human community that you can carry with you every day. That community has given us much. Are we not obligated to give it something back? My mom's advice in childhood was to pull the covers over my head. That had been the easy part. But her later advice meant I now realized that I should know when to pull the covers down and stick my neck out. That's the hard part. Too many of us go through life with the covers over our heads. We want to reach out, but we fear to make ourselves vulnerable. And we are also so busy. We have appointments to keep, we have things to do, we race through a world of demands. And then we ask ourselves almost helplessly, what can we do as individuals? Some people say that a butterfly flapping its wings in Japan can cause a hurricane in Louisiana. Any one of us, however small and helpless we may feel, can spark unimagined changes. Today's small act of kindness can become tomorrow's whirlwind of human progress. But as you know, progress is not easy, and it will not come unsolicited. I hope that many of us will inspire positive change. There is still so much to be done in both the distant lands, such as the Sudan, and close to home in our own communities. The big, sweeping revolutionary actions are almost always noticeable, but quite often, it'll be the small things that all of us can do that will have the most impact. Yes, we will be busy in our lives, but we can take a little time to do a little deed of kindness. We can help write a letter. We can inscribe a little goodness on the hard surface of this world. In a few minutes, we should be welcomed into the ranks of educated men and women. You'll be welcome to 10th grade. As we start the journey to wherever our dreams may lead, we must remember where we have come from. We must recall our membership in the human community that has nourished us. We must accept the responsibility to keep that community alive. Improving the quality of life for the entire human community is the single greatest task that faces our generation and the generations to come. Of course, no worthy endeavor is without risks and pitfalls, without snakes, if you will. But I know that you, my students, are ready to peek out. You're ready to see beyond yourselves, and you're ready to cast off the covers. You are ready to face the snakes and drive them away. You are ready to change the world. Thank you, good luck, and congratulations. There's so many things I could tell you that I want you to take out of this class, and I think this commencement address does such an amazing thing about how we can help out our community. And if I could give you 3 words to tell you what I hope you took out of this class, here they are. Maybe. Be a mockingbird. It's been a pleasure being your teacher. I've missed you this trimester. I wish you great things, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Please come and say hi, and know that I miss you, and I'm proud of you, and be a mockingbird.